Stop taking sharp photos. Sounds a little bit crazy, but there are actually loads of situations where you might want your photos to be a lot less sharp than you'd think. And even worse, focusing on sharpness too much can really mess you up creatively and professionally. When I was getting started as a photographer, I used to get really obsessed over sharpness. And at one point, I even kept returning the same lens over and over again. I thought it must have something wrong with it because it wasn't making my photos look crispy enough. To me, at the time, it seemed like that high-res, crisp, sharp look was what made a professional photo professional. But do you know what happened? After a lot of practice and learning, it was a skill issue, I figured out the incredibly simple formula to take sharp photos. But then they still didn't look professional. Thing is, sharpness is easy. Take a decent lens, stop it down, fast shutter, low ISO, that's pretty much it. But the thing is, you can nail all of that and use really high-end gear and still just have a really sharp photo of a pile of junk. If you also have hard drives full of junk photos, go ahead and subscribe so that we can talk about it more often. The thing about sharpness is that it can be a bit misleading, like a mirage in the desert or that girl that you used to talk to. A lot of people chase sharpness thinking that it'll solve their problems when in reality it's not just not the solution, but it can actually make your photos worse. Instead of putting time and energy into trying to get the hashtag crispiest results possible, it's much more important to spend it on things like light, character, color, emotion, and story. But they don't sell those things at B&H Photo, they're not affiliate linked in the description like all of the other gear I use, and those are the things that make a photo pro. But more than that, I think a lot of amateur photographers, past me included, think that sharpness is a requirement for a photo to be good. It's not. It's a creative tool, and there are actually loads of times that you might want your photo to not be sharp. Like what? Well, for starters, if you're taking photos that really focus on emotion, closeness, and feelings, then sometimes having those photos look real estate listing sharp can make them feel a bit too clinical, maybe even a bit too corporate. If you're trying to shoot the feeling of isolation or being in love or growing up too fast and you make it super sharp and crispy, it might end up looking like an insurance commercial. Having a softer, more organic, natural looking photo can really help because it means that the impact of the photo is coming from the emotions inside of it and not so much the aesthetic. If you think about it, when you feel your feelings and remember things, those memories are not in 4K Ultra HD, right? They're a bit foggy. And the same thing goes for shooting in a cinematic style, which is pretty trendy right now. If you want your photos to look like movies, then sharpness just isn't important at all. Here's a shot of me in the movie Drive from 2011, shot by Newton Thomas Sigel. Drive is one of those movies that still gets talked about today, and it's not just because he's literally me, it's also because of how stunning this film looks, and it's not sharp, like at all. There's a couple of good reasons for that. One is that being sharper wouldn't have helped it to tell the story any better, but the second is that being sharper could actually harm the story it was trying to tell by making it feel a bit too manufactured. When you're trying to make something cinematic, you really want the viewer to get immersed in what you're showing them, and if it's too clinically perfect, then that can be a bit more tricky. But taking cinematic photos is a bit of a trend right now, right? What if instead you wanted to take photos like the greats, the most famous photographers in history, the best of the best? Yeah, their work isn't that sharp either, usually. A lot of this does come back to the fact that they were using film most of the time, which just doesn't do digital levels of sharpness, and they were using older lenses, which we'll come back to. These are some photos shot by Robert Frank, one of the best photographers of all time, and they're not particularly sharp. And I don't think being more sharp would make him any better. Here are some by one of my favorite photographers, Garry Winogrand. Not sharp either. What about Martin Parr, who recently passed, rest in peace? Also not that sharp. They are in focus and they're not dreamy like they put Vaseline on the lens, but they don't look like the front cover of National Geographic's website either. When you zoom out and look at the timeline of great photography, it's really only in the last decade or so that people have really cared about having tack-sharp photos. And I think that that's because before then, most gear accessible to most people couldn't do this. But another thing that's changed is how we share our photos in the first place. Now, instead of sending your mum a pack of prints in the mail, you just iMessage her. You should send your mum some prints. She'll like it. And that brings me to another drawback of really sharp photos. People are probably going to be seeing your work on a screen like this and not on paper. If your photos are mental sharp, and on a phone, they're going to look crunchier than cornflakes. I couldn't think of anything funnier. So if all of that is true, then how can we take photos that aren't sharp without them feeling amateur? How can we make sure that our work still looks pro? Good news, I'll teach you, but first, you know how social media sucks and it's hard to have complete control over the way your photos get seen? Yeah, that's why you need to build your own portfolio website with Framer, who very kindly sponsored this video. Framer is an online tool for creating and publishing websites, and it's so quick and easy to get up and running that I used it to build slowshutterspeeds.com, where I share slow shutter photos with the exact settings I used as a reference. The best part is it only took me an afternoon to put it all together. First, I had a little browse through Framer's massive library of templates, and I picked one that was good for showing off photos. Then I just customized it a little bit, typed in the things that I wanted to say, uploaded my photos, and it was done. Just like that. And that's the process that you can use today, this weekend, to build yourself a portfolio. Even if you're not a professional photographer, having somewhere on the internet to showcase your art is super important, and your art deserves it. But aside from being great for people of my skill level, or lack thereof, Framer is actually a really powerful tool. So if you are a power user, you won't feel held back. It's got super advanced analytics. You can even run A/B tests on your landing pages, and you can use localization to translate your website and share your ideas all over the planet. So launch your site for free at framer.com, and while you're at it, go ahead and use the code HunterCreates for an upgrade on the house. Links are all below in the usual spots. Thank you very much to Framer and to you for supporting what I do. Here's the most dangerous part about this obsession with sharpness, as well as just not being that important most of the time as far as making the photo good. Sometimes spending all of your energy on the technical aspects of photo making can switch your creative juice machine off. You would be amazed at how many famous photos were borderline mistakes. A lot of my own shots that I love the most are not what I wanted or expected when I pressed the shutter. Sometimes the best art has to come out of a combination of skill, luck, and fucking up. Sure, if you're a commercial photographer, you can't afford to mess anything up, but most of us aren't that. And if you think about it, if you want to take photos like an artist, then why would you follow the process of somebody who makes shampoo commercials or real estate listings? You know Bob Ross, the Joy of Painting guy? When he makes mistakes, he calls them happy little accidents. And that's because he knows that it's those mistakes and how you figure out how to fit them into your original idea is where the art happens. It'd be a pretty happy accident if your mouse slipped and happened to click on the subscribe button down there, by the way. And while you're scrambling to regain control of your now sentient computer, feel free to follow me on Instagram or maybe join the Discord if that's your thing. See, the thing about art is that you can't manufacture it. You can't turn art into a formula or a recipe. Art is something that you have to allow to happen to you. Yes, you have to put in the work and you have to learn the technical stuff and you have to get out there with your camera and practice, but even after many years of doing this full time, I still have days where the art is just nowhere to be found. And I have some days where I feel like I'm the camera version of Neo from The Matrix. So the next time you go out for an afternoon to take photos, don't think about sharpness at all. Don't even let it into your brain hole. Instead, focus on taking photos that make you feel something. Maybe don't even think about settings at all. Put your camera in auto, just as an experiment. Maybe you think that is a rubbish idea and would make your photos worse. Maybe you're right, except you're not, because there's this whole video full of reasons that you shouldn't shoot in manual mode that you can watch next. Stay hydrated and create art.